Gear Patrol calls their new dive watch the best sub-$500 dive watch. Full stop. Men's Health rated them as the most stylish solar watch in the game. Who are we talking about? It's Movement. They're leveling up your gift giving with the sleekest watches you can buy and the biggest deals of the season. Shop 30 to 50% off Movement's innovative California clean watches, jewelry, and accessories with fast free shipping and returns now at mvmt.com. That's mvmt.com.
Okay, here's how Miro works. See, it's amazing.
What's everyone doing at David's desk?
Ever since marketing started using Miro's collaborative online whiteboard, he thinks all our other teams should sign up.
Why?
He says Miro's making his meetings disappear. And if every team gets on it, that means even less meetings. They're using Miro for brainstorms, mind maps, customer research.
So could we use Miro instead of having another 100 meetings for every round of feedback?
Yep. You can comment, react to ideas, even leave a recording on the board.
And what about presentations?
There are Miro templates for that.
How do you know so much about Miro?
I've actually been using it all along. I just used a Miro board to plan the best vacation.
Okay, I'm on board.
See how Miro users save up to 80 hours every year by meeting less and doing more. Get on board at Miro.com with 3 boards free forever. That's MIRO.com.
This is a More Than Just Podcast production.
Welcome to Podcast Season 4, Episode 8. My name is Tim Mitra. I am in Toronto, Ontario. I'm joined once again by Jonathan Kuline in Mr. and Mississauga, Ontario.
Hello there.
And we're also joined by Jaime Lopez Jr. in Mr. and Mrs. Seattle.
How's it going?
Going good. You ask me that every week. I don't understand. It's the same as last week. Okay. Alrighty.
We're good, eh?
Yeah, we're good, eh? Let's, what did I hear? It was a Canadian joke I heard. Oh, no, never mind. So let's do some fact check. And first off the block, when I was doing my recap last week, I remember Mariner trying to convince Tendi to be a bad girl, but I couldn't remember what the context was until I went back and watched it again. I can't remember why I watched it again. But the Nausicaan says, I know, I was watching the Star Trek Day stuff, and they had that clip where they're playing Jomdot with the Nausicaans. And the Nausicaan says she'll use her pheromones to trick us. Which is apparently what some Orion women can do, because that's when Tendi is offended that Mariner asks her if she could, nudge, wink, wink, and she says, "I'm not that kind of Orion." So, which I guess is a in joke if you know the Orion lore. Anyway,
yeah, they've got the pheromones thing, and there was a split in the fan base online that was wondering how literal to take "I'm not that kind of Orion." So some people took it in the Woody Harrelson, Wesley Snipes, White Men Can't Jump 1992 movie sense of like she literally cannot, and others said it was more in a I'm not that kind of girl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's scheme. What it meant. Yeah, I think I would option number 2. And Cerritos, like I remember Tom Paris mentioning, he said these Cali ships drive really fast, right? Well, it turned out Cerritos is a California class, which is why he calls it a Cali. Because that one caught me, but I couldn't quite get the context. So I actually ended up going over to Memory Alpha to get some of these factoids about California. And they mentioned the accidents that the Cerritos has, like its nacelle gets whacked by ice when it runs into a mountain, and gets some sort of thing hanging off the back of it, some space worm hanging off the back of it, and getting into a battle with the Borg and the Packlids. And so you were mentioning, we should go back and do a deep dive on the difference between. It does look like a new opening, right?
Yeah,
like it looks like they've redone it, but some of those scenes are left over from last year too. Anyway, so speaking of which, let's head over to the headlines. We have some breaking news.
Some breaking news. So let's start with some Star Trek news. Star Trek news. There is a new Borg Queen, and she is going to be on season 2 of Picard. So
spoilers.
It was announced.
Wow.
It was announced, so there's no way to avoid it if you follow any of the socials that involve Star Trek.
that Annie Werschling, who was in the Runaways series that was on for, I think, 3 seasons, which I enjoyed. I haven't finished it, but I've enjoyed what I've seen so far. She is going to join the season 2 cast of Star Trek Picard, and she is going to be playing the Borg Queen.
Which character was she on Runaways?
That's a good question. I don't remember. I recognize her face, but I couldn't tell you which character name. She's one of the parents, obviously. Like she was one of the older, like not the kids.
Yeah.
So she's going to be joining the cast as the Borg Queen. Now, there's no details in this story from Deadline.com talking about this announcement, but I guess that opens the door for us as our fine prognostication skills come to bear here. So we know we're getting Q in season 2 of Picard. We've already seen that in the trailer. Now we know we're getting a Borg Queen, and it says in a recurring role for season 2. We knew we already had 7 of 9 in there, and we know that there's sort of an alternate timeline thing going on there, because in the trailer that we saw for Picard season 2, we saw that at one point Jerry Ryan as 7 of 9 wakes up in a bed, and she's not 7 of 9 anymore. She's clearly just Annika Hansen. She doesn't have her implants. She's not cybernetically enhanced. And so any thoughts on how or why we're getting a Borg Queen?
Well, the thing about the implants, I kind of wonder if that maybe was a Picard data stream flashback kind of thing, right?
Could be,
because they did that with the first opening scene of the series. He's playing cards with Data, if I'm not mistaken, right? Picard. I mean, I don't know. I mean, and I'm kind of curious, like, where are the Borg in the timeline now? Because didn't they successfully plant a virus? Because there was huge ship had broken away, right? In TNG.
Yep. But they stole the ship.
Yeah.
They stole the Borg cube, right?
Yeah.
And then they crash landed it when they were trying to get to the homeworld of the artificial people. And then they left the survivors that were there, but they weren't Borg. They were the reclaimed people, right? So we don't really know about Borg writ large. We know about...
Well, because it was also that faction that 7 of 9 ended up communicating with those other Borgs and sort of private relay, right?
Yeah, I mean, it seems impossible. Now, of course, we know this casting, but it seems impossible that we weren't, given that we had Picard, who has such a huge history with the Borg, given that we have 7 of 9, who has a huge history with the Borg, that we wouldn't get some larger Borg stories as Picard continues season after season. But how it all ties together will be interesting.
Yeah, will be interesting. Jaime, theories? Thoughts?
I don't really have good ones because we don't know what's going on with the Borg in general in the normal timeline for Picard, and the timey-wiminess sort of thing certainly gives a lot of wild cards as to what could happen. I'm not familiar with this actress. I've not really seen Bosch, and I haven't seen Runaways. This is the 3rd actress, I think, to play the Borg Queen, Alice Creech.
Is it supposed to be the same queen? Like, I
think so.
Like in a you drop your iPhone in the river and you go back to iCloud with your new iPhone. It's sort of like the new phone is the old phone in a way, right?
Right, but none of your apps are there and music doesn't load. Yeah, it's really annoying. But because there was another actress who played. It wasn't Alex Cree who played in the 2-parter
at the end of Voyager.
Voyager, right?
Yeah. The last couple episodes of Voyager, we met another Borg Queen, and I believe she's named in this Deadline story because it says.
Is that how they get home?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That's all part of the same storyline.
I was going to say, I wonder why the Borg never went to Voy on Voy.
On Voy, here we are.
It actually says Voy in the article. Did you not see that? There's awesome. Voy Endgame, right?
Yeah.
Is that the last series of Alice Creek played the Borg Queen in Star Trek First Contact. Oh, she was in Voy Endgame. What is that?
Yeah, I think she came back. Susanna Thompson played the Borg Queen through most of the
TV
Voyager
series. Yeah.
So what is Voy Endgame? VOY Endgame.
Endgame was the series finale of Voyager.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'm pretty sure. Hope I didn't cause a fact check moment there.
No, I mean, because it says here that Susanna Thompson also took the character in, so the character, so I guess it is the same character. Although, you think they could find another woman and turn her into a Borg and make her the queen,
Yeah, Voyager's last episode was Endgame. You are correct, Jaime.
So it is Voy Endgame.
So somebody in the writing department here was just having a little fun with the fact that we're calling it Voy now.
Okay, all right.
Well, speaking of Star Trek, another bit of news this week, we got our first look at the opening sequence for Star Trek Prodigy, the new Nickelodeon / Paramount Plus series. Did you guys have a chance to look at this?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
What are your impressions?
Well, there's like a spaceship and like planets and music, and it
Good
sounds
music.
It sounds a lot like it's got a bit of Discovery vibe in there, and sort of Lower Decks-ish, whatever, but it ain't no John Williams soundtrack, or Alexander Courage for that matter. Although he gets credit for the titles in Lower Decks, which I'm puzzled by.
I think because everything is derivative of his original composition,
I see.
right?
Okay, right.
This one has a little bit of that towards the end as well.
Mm-hmm.
You can hear a little bit of the tones in there.
Yeah.
So
xylophone, yeah.
Yeah, it's good music. It seems like a good opening. Get some, hero shots of the USS, I guess it's USS Protostar NX. I think 76884. The quality that I was viewing was questionable for my internet being bad today, so I couldn't exactly make out the number. But it's got a cool third warp nacelle that opens up for extra speed.
Ooh, for a boost.
Yeah, in a weird sequence where it seems like it's going through like a giant celestial space being or something, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, that's just in time for the Celestials to be introduced in the Eternals. People will know what they're doing there.
Right. Perfect crossover between.
Trying to dig into that Marvel audience. I don't know. I think it looks really good. I mean, it doesn't. I can see why they felt comfortable releasing it. It doesn't spoil anything. I don't feel like I know anything more other than like, that's cool.
Yeah, I don't know why they would. I mean, you're right, but I don't know why. Why would they introduce the opening? I
think they were just trying to sort of get things a little bit teed up. They want people getting a little hyped for the Star Trek Day next week. I think the idea is that, between this, the Picard casting, between this, some of the news that's been leaking out over the last couple of weeks. I don't know if you guys follow all the Star Trek socials, but they've been teasing pretty heavily that we're going to get a better look at Strange New Worlds next week. Okay. So, I think they're just trying to sort of maybe drum up a little interest for, hey, want to see more? Come check out Star Trek Day.
Right, I see. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, in not as good news, Top Gun 2, which I know both of you were just dying to see. Just Top Gun 2 or Top Gun : Maverick is soaring off into the sunset. It is now off the 2021 release calendar. And this is the sort of first, I don't want to call it major because it makes my head hurt, but we'll call it major release of this fall to get bumped into 2022 because of the Delta variant and the widespread of it across particularly the United States, but around the planet as well. We're also getting news that Mission Impossible 7 is getting pushed back as a result of that, and Jackass Forever, which again, I was excited for that, is also getting bumped off the schedule. So
is Tom Cruise in Jackass Forever too?
You know what? He'd have been my first pick when I started thinking of Jackasses. So,
well, fans of the More Than Just Code will know that I talked about Jonathan's love of Tom Cruise in the episode of John Walker.
Just a genuine actor, just never just plays himself over and over and over again. Always a fresh take on the parts.
Yeah.
Anyways, so these are the first ones we're getting. Now, it seems like Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which is scheduled for release on September 3rd, which, by the time you're hearing this is probably out. That seems like that ship has sailed, which, I'm still really kind of sad about because I'm not sure that I'll see it in the theater. And I feel like, given that it is probably a bit of a referendum on, an Asian-led cast and a different type of storytelling and everything else is crappy, frankly. It's just really crappy, that I don't, I think a lot of people are going to feel a little hesitant to run out to the theater to support it, which is very disappointing, especially here where,
Right.
like Simu Liu is beloved here. So
huge in Toronto. Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
Like everybody likes him, and he's a very likable guy, and he's a good actor, and it's disappointing. But I wonder what that's going to mean for some of the other stuff this fall. Are we going to see Dune get bumped? Are we going to see the new Matrix movie get bumped? Dare I say it? Are we going to see Eternals or Spider-Man No Way Home bumps?
Are they getting bumped because it says here because of the Delta variant?
Yeah.
But I mean, is this going to be like we want to make as much box office as we can, so therefore we're going to sit on this movie? Like,
yeah, same as they've been doing for the past year and a half or so. They basically want to sort of see. I think what we're really going to see this weekend is a referendum. And I really wish it wasn't happening with Simu Liu's movie, because that's just a crappy thing to do to a cool guy. But I really feel like this whole thing is a referendum on whether or not people are going to go to the theaters for this kind of movie. Because this is a Marvel movie. Marvel movies across the board do well.
So let me say this about that. I mean, the fact that we're talking about how hesitant we are about going to see movies is a good indication that maybe they ought to rethink how they're distributing movies. If they think getting bums in seats is the only way to make money on a movie, I think they're looking at it wrong. They're holding it wrong, right? I think they should be looking at what Black Widow did, look at what, the other things the Disney movies have been doing. People are paying for Mulan. People are paying for Cruella.
But they're not paying the same amount. That's the difference. Like, even when they're charging $30 US or $35 Canadian, and they're
if you can afford to sit on a movie for 2 or 3 years, then more power to you. I take my hat off to you because you got more money than God, and you deserve to wait for nobody to go see your movie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Like, if you really want to, if you're a filmmaker and you really want to get this stuff, it's me. I'm talking, right? I love going to the theater to see movies, right? But I don't love to go to a theater and risk my life to watch a movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's disappointing. It really is. But I really feel like this weekend, what's going to happen is all the studios, not just Disney / Marvel, but all the studios are going to be paying all the attention to how Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings does. Because
I hope it has a good box office weekend in Alberta.
Yeah, probably. Or in the southern United States. I feel like what's going to happen is they're going to sort of have a look at it at the end of the weekend and say, okay, did it make $50 million? Did it make $100 million? Did it make $200 million? And if they feel like there's an acceptable line of risk there, then all the studios are going to decide whether or not they're going to pull their movies or whether or not they're going to put their movies out. Because this is the first major movie that's come out in a long time, arguably since Tenet last summer. This is the first, really want to see it in the movie theater. All due respect to Suicide Squad and some of the other stuff that came out here, Free Guy and some of the other stuff. I really think this is the first major movie that's come out in this environment. And if it does well, I think then we're going to definitely still see Dune and Matrix and all this other stuff stick on the schedule. But if it does not perform in the way, whatever that number is that Disney, Marvel wants to see, or all the other theaters, studios that are putting movies out, if it doesn't hit that mark, I bet you we're going to start seeing more of these things vanish off the schedule and move to next year.
Yeah, because I'm curious. So you just reminded me. It is Disney. Why would they do this to, again, we know that the Disney exec doesn't really think it's a real movie because he said that so much last week, but I mean, they did the same thing with Black Widow. I mean, yeah, admittedly they sat on it for almost a year and a half, but
yeah,
they released it online. Yeah, they released it as, buy it. I mean, we haven't watched it, but you and I could have watched it any time in the last, couple of weeks because we purchased it, right? So
I think the truth is, Tim, I think that you and I have very different understanding of what money earnings are than they do. Theoretically, if they had put out Black Widow in a normal environment where there was no pandemic, that movie should have made realistically $750 million. Sorry, what am I saying? It should have earned $750 million to $1 billion. That's what it should have earned in the theater, based on some of the non-major event Marvel movies. That's where it should have probably been. I think in the end, I can't remember, Jaime, I think we talked about it in a previous episode. I think it ended up making worldwide and including Disney Plus, it made like $350 million or something like that, which is not anything to sneeze at. But again, when you're used to using the word billion, I think it hurts to go back to million. And I think it's hitting the bottom line on these studios. I think they're looking at this and saying, yeah, sure, we could put out Shang-Chi and have people pay, $35 and watch it in their house and have as many people as they want watch it in their house. Or we can put it in the theaters and see if we can get that big cash grab and see if we can get it up to $500 million or $750 million.
And what do we care if the audience dies and never go see a movie again in the future?
And you know what? That's their prerogative as a business, and it's our choice as the consumers to say, to hell with you, we're not going.
Right.
We reserve that right. I just wish it wasn't on Simu's dime that this was happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Awkwafina's and all the other great performers and the filmmakers, and it's just a crappy situation to put them in. I want to support this movie because I like the actors. I like the fact that we're getting better Asian representation in movies, especially big mainstream movies like this. I feel hamstrung.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know if we're actually going to, if this is going to have the kind of effect I hope it does, and we're going to sort of see. I honestly hope that, either we get to a safer system, which some jurisdictions are getting to, or they just go back to, this isn't going to work and we'll try it a different way.
Yeah. Hey, is Monday a holiday for you guys in the States too, Jaime? Labor Day?
You also have Labor Day? We have Labor Day for sure. Your Canadian Labor Day is not like in August?
Ow, Jaime, ow.
Or like 3 days before ours, like your 4th of July, your Independence Day.
Well, the good news is we have Labor Day on the Monday, and then our Black Friday is like 3 days after that, which is really nice. It's convenient for us.
Yeah.
And the best part is Jaime does not know if we're kidding or not.
I have no idea. That's like we asked. I was like, oh, they have a Canadian Labor Day. Interesting.
And there's Moose Day coming up on.
Oh yeah, Moose Day. I keep forgetting to buy my wife a Moose Day present. I was quickly Googling Moose Day.
Yeah, I'm like, maybe this is a day where, instead of ritualistically shaving yaks, they shave, moose. It's like fish. It's very weird to say moose as a plural. It should be like meese, like geese.
Mooses?
Yeah.
Mooses.
Yeah, what do you call a herd of moose?
Whatever it wants, because they're huge and scary.
Yep. Almost saw a moose at the farm, by the way.
Almost? How do you almost see a moose?
Well, Peter, right? So he comes in, he says there's a moose drinking in the pond. We have this huge pond out the back of their house, right? Like about, 50 feet from the house. And he hears this moose, So he goes and gets a giant flashlight and flashes it at the moose to see the moose. And then he comes in there and tells me, of course, by the time I get out there, the moose saw the flashlight and said, I'm out of here. And so by the time I got it there with my iPhone 12 and was able to take a night shot.
So what you're saying is you got a tip from a possibly inebriated New Brunswick person, and it may or may not have been a moose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Farm beers.
Good.
Farm beers were involved.
Farm beers were involved, no doubt.
Yeah.
They always are.
Yeah. And I mean, I could hear the moose. Like you could hear them baying in the, like seriously, Jaime, we don't all have moose in our backyard.
Dear American audience, this is an aberration. I can assure you, in all my time here in Ontario, I have never seen a moose.
I saw a moose in Quebec once.
I've seen them in New Brunswick, but I've never seen one here.
Yeah. Anyway, admittedly, I was crossing the border into Quebec, so oh well. Let's move on to the happy news.
Happy news. This one got me excited. So I am a fan of The Rocketeer. Always have been. Love Dave Stevens comics, and I really enjoyed the original Disney Rocketeer movie. We are finally going to get the return of The Rocketeer. Disney Plus is going to bring us the return of The Rocketeer. So it is written by Ed Ricourt and is a possible starring role for David Oyelowo, who was the star of Selma. And I've seen him in some other stuff, and he's great. And I am very excited at this prospect. I wish they had gone and done it, in like 1993, considering the original movie came out in 1991. That's 30 years for those scoring at home.
Yeah, that's Billy Campbell. Wow.
Yeah, about the old Billy Campbell one with Billy Campbell and Jennifer Connelly. It's I really enjoyed that movie. I think it's great. I've watched it since. I own it on a Blu-ray, and I love that movie. So I'm very excited that they're finally going to return to that franchise. I wish that there was some stronger sort of connection, but who knows? I mean, Billy's still around. Maybe they'll sort of tie it all together. But yeah, really cool that they're going to finally dip back into that franchise. And
Billy Campbell did a really good show, which I've talked about, called Cardinal, which is like a Canadian cop show, right? Where he partners with a Quebecois detective, and he's got a shady past, and part of it takes place in Toronto, and some part of it takes place up northern Ontario. But really good show. So it's like 3 seasons long, nice. Sort of a murder mystery kind of stuff, right?
Cool.
But like with season long arcs, right? Good show. Cardinal.
Either of you Rocketeer fans in any way?
I can't remember if I ever saw The Rocketeer now that you say that. Right? You must have been quite young when you played it.
Billy's very charming, but I would watch that movie 1,000 times for how beautiful Jennifer Connelly looks in that movie. She plays this sort of like, 1940s, 1940s, Hollywood girl, and she is breathtakingly beautiful in that movie.
Okay.
Yeah, yep. I definitely saw it, and I'm pretty sure I owned a Rocketeer action figure of some sort. Although I have admittedly not seen it for a few decades, so gotta find wherever that's
in El Paso.
Yeah, I gotta find the movie wherever it's streaming and watch it before
Disney Plus, because Disney owns the rights. So
Disney. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'll check that out. Yeah.
Yeah. Next up, we got some casting news. On the, I'd say long awaited, but I mean, really, is that even apt when you're talking about the Mad Max movies? The sort of, I guess it's a prequel. The prequel to Mad Max Fury Road is focusing on the character of Furiosa that was played by Charlize Theron in that. The new movie is going to star Anya Taylor-Joy, who, of course, most recently is in The Queen's Gambit. She was nominated for Emmy Award for that, and got huge accolades and praise for that. I loved her in that performance, and she's going to be in the new Edgar Wright movie as well. And I mean, I was probably in for this movie already, but I love that she's in it. Apparently, according to a few different sources, including the article that we'll link to from our show notes, it says that the reason that she got cast in this is that Edgar Wright showed an early cut of Last Night in Soho to the director, George Miller, of course, the creator of all the Mad Max movies. And apparently he thought her performance was so captivating that he immediately cast her as the young Furiosa. So
nice.
All our worlds are colliding.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, DC Fandom is back. So, we got a Star Trek day, we got a Star Wars day. Apparently Fandom is a recurring thing now. Who
Don't
knew?
forget we got Tadam from Netflix.
Tadam, yes, we do have Tadam. So DC Fandom is going to take place on Saturday, October 16th, beginning at 1 p.m. Eastern Time or 10 a.m. Pacific Time. You do the math wherever you are. They are going to unveil all kinds of stuff. So they've already announced a little bit of a teaser for what they're going to do on the streaming event. It's basically, they're labeling it as the Free Digital Comic Convention. And so they're going to talk about Aquaman King of Atlantis, which is the new HBO animated series that they're working on. The Batman, which is the movie that's going to come into the theaters. Black Adam, which is the one that's starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. They're talking about all their new TV shows. The seasons are still going on. They're talking about Doom Patrol, DMZ, The Flash movie, The Flash TV show, Harley Quinn, Injustice, Legends of Tomorrow, Stargirl. You name it, they are going to be in and on it. So if you are a fan of DC Comics, there is going to be a ton of stuff coming out of that. I'm sure talking about, of course, a whole bunch of new graphic novel projects and a whole bunch of TV projects, live action movies, all that stuff. So should be a good one for us because it'll probably lay out what they have in mind for the next year and two.
Yep. Cool.
And now to some sad news. So unfortunately this week we lost a television legend, Ed Asner, who famously played the gruff but lovable newsman Lou Grant on the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and later in his own drama. Lou Grant passed away at age 91 this week. He was just apparently an absolute gentleman. I have some people who have encountered him over the years said he was an absolute gent. He won 5 Emmy Awards. He was extremely lauded and loved. And, crossed over into our world a little bit. Famously, again, we talked about how he did the voice for the lead character in Up. And he is, he's just sort of this acting legend who seemed like he was always there. He was working, again, he did the voice for the Doug Days cartoon that's now on Disney Plus. And he was working right to the end. I saw him in live action recently. He did an HBO series. He did a couple episodes of an HBO series that I was watching. And he was apparently, active and working and doing all that stuff, right up into his 90s. So what a huge life and what a huge loss. I mean, this guy was an absolute Hollywood legend.
Yeah, definitely. I pretty much loved everything he was in. And I think Gavin MacLeod and only one other person left from the main cast.
Well, Gavin's died. Gavin died.
He is dead.
Yeah,
okay,
Gavin died. It's Betty White is the last one.
Betty White, yeah. Well, she's going to marry Keith Richards at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah, Betty White is the last survivor of the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and the last survivor of the Golden Girls, and the last survivor of pretty much anything she's ever starred in.
Yeah, Password. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So keep your eye on Betty White. If you've got the betting pools going, Betty White is the name you're looking for.
Wow. Yeah. Let's hope you haven't jinxed her.
Well, if she dies next week, I'm going to get a lot of hate emails.
No, it's like it kind of feels like she's eternal, like the Queen, right? Like,
oh yeah.
Like they're locked, in some sort of astral battle, continuously trying to squelch the other one, and neither one gives ground.
I had visions of her as like the Kurgan in Highlander. There can be only one, just. Yeah. Betty White for the win.
Yeah. Here's hoping. All right. Jaime, your turn to talk.
So, in the grand world of intellectual property making its way in many places, like, The Office that was on Netflix and then went to back to NBC, which put it on Peacock. Friends went to HBO Max. Seinfeld is now moving from Hulu over to Netflix, which apparently had acquired the rights almost 2 years ago. So I don't recall. Let me click through this article here.
I don't think it's ever been off Canadian television.
No,
you can
it's
watch
like
Seinfeld
constantly on here too, on like TBS or something.
comedy or something. Yeah, maybe it is TBS here too.
Yeah, what is there a number of years assigned here? I don't know, a bunch of years probably, but I'm finding it kind of curious that didn't. I thought that was an NBC show. I'm a little surprised it didn't default back to Peacock. But hey, maybe big bags of cash. Netflix brought up to dump trucks of cash, and now they're going to get it starting October 1st.
Yeah.
Speaking of time. This is practically follow-up to last week where we talked about Amazon's Wheel of Time show. We now have the first trailer. So not just stills, we get to see this stuff in action. The show is coming on November 19th. Thoughts? The trailer itself looked good and fun. It reminds me a bit of like Netflix's Shadow and Bone series in terms of cinematography and stuff. I'm not familiar with the original property, having never read the series. What did you gentlemen think?
I thought it was impressive looking. Like, production value looks high. It's got a really kind of awesome looking cast. I mean, Rosamund Pike, and it looks really good. It had a sort of a mix of a Game of Thrones-y kind of vibe, which I guess is inescapable in this sort of fantasy genre right now, just because it's the most recent big thing we've had. But obviously much more sort of mystical sorcery kind of thing going on there. I would watch this. I'm with you, Jaime. I don't know anything about it. One of my best friends is actually a huge Robert Jordan fan and has read everything. And so I'll be really curious to pick his brain as to whether or not he's excited and whether or not he feels like this is decent representation of the work. Obviously, not around to object to it, but I am curious to sort of see what Amazon has in mind here. Is this, season 1 of, 5, 10, or is this, are they doing it book by book? Again, I really don't know. But the trailer looks compelling. I like the actors. It looks like the production value is pretty high. I'd watch this for sure. Will you watch it, Tim?
I might, yeah. If it's on Netflix and it's free, sure.
Well, it's on Amazon Prime.
Oh, it's Prime, even better. If it's on Prime and it's free, I'll watch it, yeah. Yeah, Prime, I mean, I gotta say, Prime does seem to have a glut of, gotta watch this shows, I mean, they come. It's not as they're not as ubiquitous as they are on Netflix or Disney's or Apple TV, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just about all the major production stuff on Apple I've been watching, but I kind of wait for Prime. Maybe a couple of months they have something that's worth stopping by and having a look, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll probably watch. Is it a movie or a show?
Series, I think.
Series, yeah. Okay. All right. More dragons. World needs more dragons. Well, guess what? We're at that part of the show where we talk about Star Trek Lower Decks this time. We're talking about Mugato, Gumato, Bulato. There's lots of ways to pronounce this name. But we're going to let Jaime do the rundown, and we'll sit back and laugh.
Here's the challenge, Jaime. As you go through it, every single time you say the word, you have to say it differently.
A different way.
And go.
All right, so it's not the first word in the notes, so I guess I have a few different chances here. So we start off with the Cerritos, people on the treadmill doing gym-like things. Boimler and Rutherford and Mariner doing the Commander Riker gladiator sport thing. I forget what it's called.
Oh, it looks like
judo. Yeah,
it looks like American Gladiators. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like from that episode when Riker's dad came on board and they beat each other with sticks.
But isn't that the tool that they used in when Spock was having Ponfar on Vulcan? It had the
it looks like those same weapons.
Generation,
it's
it had
got the dull end and then the sharp end,
the blade and the whacker part. Yeah. Big eraser thing on the end.
So they have some fun, but it gets a little serious with Mariner getting injured and with blood on her face, saying that now she can finally get in a real workout, and she just goes ham on.
They say you can leave the kid gloves on. You can take the kid gloves off, right?
Yeah, and the kid gloves are off, and she just absolutely destroys Rutherford and Boimler, including a hand stabbing as the stick broke. Shax comes in and is just completely undisturbed by what's happening here. He's just waiting for his 10 minutes
early.
Yeah. Carry on. So we cut to the planet a planet surface where I wrote Phloxes, I looked it up, it's Denobulans, are on a planet, and they get attacked by a gorilla-ish beast that we will learn the name of soon, because we come to Captain Freeman, who says that they're headed to Frylon 4, which has reports of a Mugato that's not native to the planet. And we're like, what's going on there? We gotta check this out. Over in, I don't know if they ever actually called this 10 Forward. I'm going to call it 10 Forward because of TNG. Over in 10 Forward, the mess hall, so to speak, Boimler and Rutherford are playing a game called Diplomath, where they are both losing and accept a compromise, because it's the way to win, apparently, is to be upset at what you've both received. Right? This will become important later. There's a sketchy look from the bartender who calls Mariner a powder keg friend of yours, and he's regaling them with all of these things of haven't you ever wondered how she can kick so much ass and get away with everything? She's a secret agent for Starfleet Black Ops, and isn't it weird how she seems to know every fighting style? And meanwhile, in the background, Mariner is doing that knife trick with that Klingon knife. She just got her hand on the table and stabbing in between the fingers. So it seemed pretty believable at this point. There is an interruption, and that Billups is still waiting for his peach daiquiri. So the bartender's boss is that teenager from The Simpsons. It's always at the fast food restaurant. You've got that really high pitched voice. And then we cut over to sickbay, where Tendi is excited to help on a patient who's got some medical issues, but gets pushed out of the way and overruled by her superior officer, I forget the name of the person that she was so angry at before, but this person has the extra lieutenant junior grade pip, hollow pip on her, not a piece of corn on her on her pips. And Dr. Tana sees this and tasks Tendi with a list of folks who haven't gotten their physical exams, their annual exams. Like, hey, I need you to go do this. All right, go track all these people down. This will become important later as well. Meanwhile, Rutherford and Boimler are studying Mariner's previous assignments. They're like, it's kind of weird. There's this one ship, the Atlantis, where like half the crew just disappeared. Like there's like no explanation whatsoever. And they're starting to really believe like maybe she is a, sinister black ops person. Mariner comes in. They like throw a tricorder at her. She catches it in a really cool fashion right in front of her face. Like she's just got incredible, cat-like reflexes, and she's acting kind of sinister. Afterwards, the away team, the whole group, beams down to the planet Fraulein 4 to search for the Mugato. There you go. That was a little different accent there. As they're hunting this beast down, Shax sniffs and tastes the dung and describes it as both fresh and tangy.
Everybody else is like,
yeah, and he keeps tasting the dung. They're like, dude, it's very clear that it's heading in this direction. Why do you keep doing this?
He's fast becoming one of my favorite characters.
Oh my gosh. And as it turns out, there are some Ferengi who are poaching the Mugatos. and the Ferengis also have a signal jammer, so the away team is all alone for this mission. They just, aren't going to be able to get help. And I forgot to mention that the bartender had said that, like, hey, Mariner is going to show her training when her back's against the wall. And now here, Shax says, this is just how I like it. Our backs against the wall. Yeah. Setting up, the potential for bad things to happen here. Shax jumps into the fray, curb stomps a Ferengi poacher. The other poacher pulls out the TNG era Ferengi whip, accidentally whips the control systems for the Mugato cages. Deadly chaos ensues as like all the creatures are let out, and in the chaos, Mariner, both Boimler and Rutherford see Mariner stab Shax and then like drink his blood like an insane person. So they're 100% freaked out at this point. There was another alien that was with the Ferengi. I forget what his name and or species was, but there was like a green guy who was part of like the trading crew trying to deal with the animals.
Yeah, he was looking for horns.
Is that what he was? Okay, he was
he was trying to trade them for horns.
Right. So he escapes the planet.
Are they horns or are they tusks? They do say that.
Yeah, it's the thing on the top of their head, right?
Yeah, well, they say make a point of saying it's a horn. Is it a horn or is it a tusk? Who cares? We're going to chop them up anyways.
Right. So the Cerritos sees a lone ship exiting the planet. They're talking to the guy. He acts like a 100% jerk, and they tractor beam him. This, unfortunately, causes the ship's hull integrity to start failing. So they say, okay, we're going to have to emergency beam him to the bridge, and his ship explodes, and he's like, oh no, all my stuff. He's feeling very hurt here. Cut back over to Boimler and Rutherford in the woods. They encounter another Mugato.
Well saved.
That's another pronunciation. There you go. And they're saved by an Aussie alien biologist. So I don't remember if he said what species he was.
No, he does say his name though. He says his name is Patengi.
Okay.
I'm the biologist, Patengi.
So we cut back to the ship where Tendi is making the rounds for the annual physical and just gets flat out turned down by officer after officer, right? So she's just not getting anywhere on these whole come into sickbay for annual exam things. We cut back to the planet surface in Patengi. Is that what you said his name was?
Yep, Patengi, yep.
He had claimed that he had 5 books about these animals, and it turns out he has read 5 books, not written them, and he's dead. He just gets murdered.
His head right off.
Yeah. So Boimler and Rutherford are like not in a good place right now. Back on the ship, though, Tendi uses a DNA scan of a cup in the mess hall or 10 forward to get around the annual scan thing, and realizes like this dude's skeleton is made out of paper apparently, as he's just falling apart while trying to put the moves on a lady.
Yeah, it's really bad sign when you break your hip hitting on someone.
Back on the planet, Boimler and Rutherford hide in a log from 2 Mugatos who are then mating on top of the log, and then a third one arrives on the scene and apparently has vowed only to watch and never to interfere.
And gently stroking his horn and or tusk.
Yeah. So it gets real weird.
That one just likes to watch, apparently.
We cut back to the ship. Tendi is going for the next exam. In this case, with Jet, who is fighting Kaishon in or not fighting, sparring Kaishon, and this ends up distracting him. He just gets his clock cleaned, but the scan is done. She flies into another crewman scan on what is presumably the holodeck. Right? Just kind of like makes her way in, scanning people. So she's doing a really good job, but then finds this mysterious entry that doesn't have a name on the list. It's just a number. We're back on the planet. Rutherford's little eye implant scans a booby trap, which unfortunately ends up trapping Mariner. He's like, look, guys, I'm not a Black Ops spy. I started the rumor. They're like, what are you talking about? But like, you went crazy on Shaxx and like stabbed him and bit him. He's like, no. I stabbed Shaxx because he was poisoned. I was getting the poison out of him, right? And they're like, well, what happened to the Atlantis? Like, just half the crew just left. It's like, no, they kept that off their record because, like, it's embarrassing to lose a starship to lice, So all the weird, holes in what the record was were, starting to get filled in here. And, they have a little heartwarming thing where they were like, well, we kind of believed it all because we didn't think a badass like you would be friends with us, right? So they bring the whole spirit of friendship here. So Mariner is then, trapped by the Ferengi and taken away there. Back on the ship, we have Tendi and Dr. Tana talking about the list of exams and this mysterious last person without the exam. And her eyes wander over to a panel and realize that, wait a minute, that number is the doctor's identification. You're the last holdout? And Dr. Tana kind of loses it here. She's like, you want me to see a doctor? I am the doctor. And runs away going full cat, running around, hiding under stuff.
I love the scene with Tendi chasing her down the hallway going, bad Dr. Tana, bad.
Yeah, bad.
Yeah. So Captain Freeman is offering a shuttle to the poacher to replace his destroyed ship, and they're just going to claim like, we'll just tell Starfleet we lost it like in a black hole or something, right? Like this happens all the time with Starfleet shuttles. And the guy's like, oh, really? Well, I can't replace the unique items I lost, which all happen to be items on the captain's shelf, right? So he's taking full advantage of this negotiation here. Meanwhile, Boimler and Rutherford are trying to figure out how they can save Shaxx and Mariner from the Ferengi poachers, and they realize they can only use their brain. This is like the best thing, right? Cut back to the ship. Tendi's chasing Dr. Tana in the Jeffries tube, like all crazy there. In part of this, she falls down, breaks her arm. It's like, oh, my arm is broken. The doctor's like, come on, man, that's like such a fake thing. Oh my gosh, holy shit, it's totally broken. And Tendi, like a real trooper, uses that opportunity to scan the doctor, even though her like skeleton, her broken bone is poking through the exposed skin. Ugh. So crazy. I have you ever heard of Quark thing here where the captees are talking to the Ferengi, and they're like, yeah, obviously I've heard of Quark, man. You don't have to be this like TNG era Ferengi. You should be a profit driven Ferengi. Here's where Boimler and Rutherford come in with using their brains, seemingly coming in with a cannon but it's actually a projector, and they project a little hologram with a whole business plan for the Mugatos instead of having, dead ones that you poach and sell the horns, tusks, whatever. What if you had live ones, and then you can make this whole thing where you can get them, on like an endangered species sort of list. You ban the killing of them and make this into a nature preserve for them, right? And the Ferengi is like, oh, I don't really like letting captives go. And the Starfleet guys are like, well, technically we should be apprehending you because you were committing the crime here. And they say, well, if we're both unhappy, then we've reached a compromise, just like the Diplomat movie and game earlier. Yeah. Things are taken care of here. Shax is getting tended to by Dr. Tana in sickbay in a very lusty sort of way.
Yeah, right? Those two are apparently at the very least hooking up.
Yeah. And this time, Tendi doesn't let the superior officer take charge when a patient starts, coding. And she gets a little bit of a pat on the back from Dr. Tana that says, by the way, this isn't your patient. Get the heck out of the way. Good for showing some spine, but this is the wrong spot. We end up seeing Captain Freeman chatting with Admiral Freeman. And apparently there's some sort of scam going around the universe where a junk ship will purposely self-destruct and blame it on Starfleet. So smash cut to the Cerritos hard tractoring the shuttle and say like, yeah, we're back for this. We figured you out. And they take them back to the planet and say, you can do some good for a change, like shoveling all this fresh and tangy dung.
Yeah.
Then we go to the last part of the show where Mariner, Rutherford, and Boimler are all playing Diplomat. They accept each other's strengths. They realize that, like, even though she's never played the game before, like, oh my god, she was totally winning the game. What's happening? Why is she beating us? And we leave with Mariner spreading new rumors to the bartender about what the boys did down on the planet.
Yeah,
continuing
calling them the Gumato twins and saying that they have secret special powers.
Yeah.
So the weapon that they use is a Vulcan Lurpa. That's from Amok Time, which is the episode where Spock goes into heat, right?
Yeah.
And it's the one that Kirk has to fight against the wife's champion or whatever. Yeah.
So did you guys do you guys know the origin of the funny like Mugato, Gumato, potato joke?
No, I don't know, but I do recognize the creature.
So the creature was from the original series. It was originally called the Neuralese Great Ape in the first draft script from 1967. The Mugato eventually became known as the Gumato in the later draft scripts. However, DeForest Kelley could not pronounce the name correctly, and it changed. So both Kelly and William Shatner pronounced the name as Mugatu all the way through the episode. And Mugato is still frequently spelled as Mugatu instead of Gato. It's Gatu. And apparently throughout the series that it's been kind of flashed back and forth between Mugato, and Gumato. So that's why it's sort of a running gag that these guys just jumped on board, and that I must say, Jaime, bravo, well done, well done. You made it all the way through that. That was really good.
As many possible ways as I could.
Yeah. But I love that they were just like, that's even deeper cuts, because not only was that like a joke about an original TOS thing, but it was a joke about a behind the scenes thing that, like, that they were mispronouncing the name even then. That's pretty awesomely deep cuts.
Did you cover the part about where Boimler and Rutherford are comparing other sort of Star Trek tropes? Did you miss that? The part where they're like, last week they talked about the ways that the senior officers could come back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And this episode, they had a similar type thing where they recounted all the various ways that things could happen.
Yeah. Yep. It's easy for them to do. There's so many. Again, you're dealing with, this is the 801st episode of Star Trek writ large, right?
Yeah. Yep.
You can really take it to task if you want to. Yeah. Cool. Again, this show, it so rarely disappoints, but when it's at its best, again, Shax eating the 2 helpings of Mugatu dung was just hilarious.
Or the part where they both throw their tricorders at Mariner at the same time.
So wait a minute, just because I got a lucky on one catch means that I'm a secret black agent, a black ops agent? Yeah.
And that's the first time they what is it called? What do they call it? Sector 32, what's it called?
Section 31?
Section 31, yeah. The first time they referenced that in this show, I think. Oh no, they mentioned it last year with the senior team with the black.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because they went on the black uniforms and yeah. Oh, I honestly, this is my favorite Star Trek show now. It really is. It's so much fun.
Yeah,
it really is. It's so good. Like it again. I did actually have a bit of a follow up to our discussion last week. I did have a conversation. So my son caught up and watched all of the episodes, and we had a conversation on our previous episode about how people, would it really only resonate with Star Trek fans? And his perspective was, I know there's probably some stuff that I'm not getting, but I still think it's hilarious and funny and a really nice take on sci-fi. And, I'm okay with missing a few jokes. And if I'm watching with somebody who knows, like, me or Tim or whatever, then all the better. I get that much more information. But he's like, I don't feel like I'm missing anything. And they do try, and a lot of stuff, they do sort of explain it within the context of the show. He's like, I don't miss out on everything. I just miss out on like a tiny bit of the nuance. I'm like, all right, fair point. So he didn't feel like it was really impairing his enjoyment of the show. So
yeah, as I suspected, I think it's a good animated series. It's a good, sci-fi. If you're into any Star Trek at all, and I don't think it matters if you're, a TNG or a Voy fan, or Deep Space Nine or whatever, or
even just sci-fi writ large. Like, it does kind of work on the tropes of sci-fi in general that, we're so used to this sort of heroic veneer on these characters and this, never say die attitude to go to the other side of that of like, of course the ship has to have people who are not like that. It works across you don't have to know Star Trek. You don't have to know everything about it to get the humor of that. We've all worked some crappy jobs, right?
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. The sort of lower, the worker level knowledge of what's going on kind of plays on that thing. Like, the thing about it is like we talked about before, the bridge crew are always like the A players, right?
Yeah.
And these guys, while they're A players from our perspective, because of the four on the show, they kind of, it's funny because this week they paired Rutherford and Boimler together, but they, and Tendi wasn't even involved, but the way they sort of like have these sort of, we know what's going on, but we're kind of in the fog and we're okay with that kind of perspectives, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas we, as the informed, watchers, know the reference that the four characters are missing, right?
Yeah.
And they did kind of set us all up with this Black Ops thing last week, right? When Mariner says to Tendi in the shuttlecraft that, hey, I've got this mysterious past sort of thing that you don't really know about, right?
Yeah, and they've hinted at it throughout the whole series that she's, been in multiple places. She has lots of interesting experiences, whether or not that was ever going to pay off was sort of a mystery. But yeah, we do get a bit of a payoff this time.
More Mac problems.
Yeah, more Mac problems.
Not Mac. It's always crashing and wanting bones.
Yeah. Now that you've interrupted the podcast. Yeah, so let's talk about What If then, I guess, if we're done with Star Trek.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So what if the Sorcerer Supreme lost the love of his life and not the use of his hands? This was
interesting.
Dark.
Yeah, it's been on a trend.
I thought last week was dark, but damn, this was a dark episode. I mean, there was some humor, but oof, there's a lot of stuff to chew on here. Repeatedly seeing, Christine Palmer die over and over again, and then Doctor Strange making all these dark choices as he just trying to bring her back, and he's killing all these other creatures. He kills a gnome. I mean, it's dark. It's a dark episode.
Yeah. Yeah, why was he absorbing he was trying to get the powers from all these other fantasy creatures?
Yeah, he ends up going back in time to the Lost Library of Cagliostro, and he gets all those books. And one of the books mentions that he can absorb power from other beings. And first he dismisses it, and then he realizes, let me try this. And he first thing he calls up is this massive creature, which I don't know if to you guys, but to me it looked like the exact same creature from episode 1. The giant tentacled Hydra beast. Yeah. And he realizes, nope, that's a little outside of my league. Let's start smaller. And so he calls forth a gnome and then he basically devours its life energy.
Yeah.
And then he gets more powerful, and then he just sort of starts working his way up the food chain till eventually he finally does get to the point where he can absorb that kind of level of beast, and then he uses that power to basically engage in this. Well, I guess you have, obviously spoilers abound here, kids, but he ends
it's
up,
a bit of Groundhog Day. Let's just say that.
Yeah, he realizes that the Ancient One has split Doctor Strange into two paths, two timelines existing in the same universe, where one Doctor Strange did go to the past and became this monstrous creature who absorbs all this other life force and learns and lives for centuries and does all these evil things in the effort to try and get Christine to come back to life. The other Doctor Strange puts the Eye of Agamotto back down, doesn't manipulate time, and lives his life. Right. And eventually the two of them come into conflict and have a really fun fight scene. Like, that was one of the best fight scenes I've seen in a cartoon in a long time. That was really well done. And then in a bit of a twist of fate, the dark Doctor Strange wins, kills and consumes the life force of the heroic Doctor Strange. Yeah. And in doing so, he raises, he breaks this absolute point in time where Christine has to die for him to be able to save the universe. And in doing so, he destroys his whole universe and ends up basically ending up face to face with a Watcher saying, like, well, you can stop this. You have the power of a god. You can fix this. And the Watcher basically says, dude, you did this to yourself. Like, nothing I can do about this.
And I don't have that power. Yeah.
And we end up with, the Dark Doctor Strange basically alone in a bubble. And even Christine, the revived Christine, basically disappears in front of him. And we're left with him alone in this void. I do wonder if this is the last we'll see of this incarnation of Doctor Strange.
The dark one?
The dark one, because he's not dead. Mm-hmm. He's just in this little pocket of darkness inside of his destroyed universe. There's no reason why in a multiverse movie, say, for example, something called Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, that we couldn't see a dark Doctor Strange.
True, yeah. I think it was interesting, too, the way they kind of, and again, this is the sort of writer's trick, but they, at one point, one of the doctors hears the voice of the Watcher.
Yeah, the one in the past. Yeah, he actually senses the Watcher watching him.
Yeah, which is kind of cool. But I remember in Endgame, or maybe it was the one before Endgame, he's sitting there, twirling his dials or whatever they're called to try and find a solution to.
Yeah, it's Infinity War.
Thanos.
Yes, Infinity War. He's trying to figure out how to fix it.
But then he says there's only one way to fix it, but he doesn't actually go into those scenarios. He just plays them all through, like a chess player would sort of look at the board and figure out what the best moves are.
Well, because when he comes back out of it, he says to Iron Man, "If I tell you what I saw, then it won't happen." Yeah. So
right. Yeah. Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I think this was an interesting story. It made me realize that I am looking forward to, and we talked about it last week, talking about looking forward to Spider-Man and the familiarity of that Spider-Man universe and Spider-Man characters. I'm looking forward to another Doctor Strange movie. I think this was the first time. I haven't rewatched Doctor Strange. I've watched bits of some of the other movies over the past few years. I will probably want to go back and watch Doctor Strange again after this. I had forgotten how much I enjoyed that character and the mystic part of the Marvel universe as they portrayed it. And I think, and Benedict Wong and Tilda Swinton there as the Ancient One, and everybody was back. And I found myself thinking I really am looking forward to, Benedict Cumberbatch being Doctor Strange again in a big blockbuster movie. And, we know obviously it's going to tie into the multiverse. We know it's going to tie into WandaVision. I'm looking forward to seeing this character again and having his own adventure, not just as part of the ensemble of Avengers.
I got to say that the collecting of the Infinity Stones got a little tiring, because that was obviously one of the major plot points in the Doctor Strange movie too, right? Mm-hmm. Because he carries one or he protects one.
Yeah.
But I mean, so it's kind of interesting to see what's going to happen now in the Marvel, Black Widow. There was was there a mention of Infinity Stones at all in that movie? I don't know if there was, right?
No, I don't think there was.
But yeah, and then the sort of even in Ragnarok they reference it a bit, but yeah, I mean, I think okay, that arc has run, so let's look at some fresh stories. That would be kind of interesting thing to do, right? So
yeah, no, I think it definitely whet my appetite for more Doctor Strange, which is, I guess, kind of the best part of these What If episodes, is that they are going to places that we haven't necessarily spent a lot of time, even if it is in these weirdly twisted ways. I mean, this was, as I say, this was an extremely dark and kind of depressing story of, you know, like, I mean, as much as obviously you can blame the Doctor Strange who goes to the past and everything, but, you know, I mean, he's going because he's anguished over losing this person that he loves. You know, he doesn't set out to become a monster. He feels like he's justified because everything that he does, he feels is in the cause of being to be reunited with her, and he loves her. You know, so many of the best villains, of course, are motivated by what they view as the right thing to do. Even, you know, we talked about Thanos, right? Like, Thanos thinks he's doing the right thing, even though everyone else would be like, dude, genocide. It's interesting. It's interesting that they can take that character who we all, you know, have seen just nothing but, you know, the good side of, and spin it that way and make it into a monster.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he is kind of a creep in the beginning of the original.
Well, he's a narcissist for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, so I mean, he's got that attitude already, so that there is that side of him that you know, you could exploit, right?
Yeah.
And here the twist is, you know, he doesn't lose the use of his hand. In fact, he was even like feeling sorry for himself when he lost his hands, right?
Perhaps we're talking too much, but I'm curious, Jaime, what you thought of this one.
It was pretty interesting for its darkness, and that it has like a twisted Groundhog's Day sort of approach, where they show like every single thing he tried to do to avoid his fate. Right? He's like, all right, what if I don't, you know, what if I don't do the stereotypical rich doctor with an awesome sports car, and we just do the illegal thing and zoom around this truck? He's like, what if I just hang behind it? Oh, they get hit from behind. Okay. What if we take a different route? Nope, they get hit by a different truck. Okay, we're gonna go to a pizza joint. Just do that instead. Nope, you know, they get caught up in some sort of robbery that happens.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. I did think very early on, I was like, oh, he needs more power. Maybe this is going to be an Infinity Stone related thing. They didn't go that route. They went down the mystic absorbing other people's essence sort of thing. And I did think it was interesting that they did what they've done in the comics a few times, where people can perceive the Watcher.
Yep.
And this is that first time to see that. So I thought that was pretty well done.
Yeah. Yeah, I still feel like it's funny. Again, this is episode 4 of 9. We still don't have a ton of cohesion. These are still what appear to be, at this point, standalone stories. The question is, will it build towards something as the season progresses, or are we just going to keep getting standalone story after standalone story? We know somewhere down the line that we're getting a Marvel Zombies story. We've seen that in the previews. You know, there are some stories to tell. I do wonder if this is going to sort of feel more cohesive. They made a point of before the season of saying this is going to be part of canon, and this is, you know, part of the greater story. But I wonder if it doesn't pay off until, you know, Multiverse of Madness or something else, or if it's actually going to pay off here. Because so far, it certainly isn't. The time between episodes on WandaVision was long. It was even longer with Loki. I was like, could not wait for the next episode to find out where it was going, because between the performances and the story, I thought it was crackling. In this one, I got to be honest, I don't even give it a second thought once I finish watching the episode till the next week, because it's not like they're leaving me with a real like, oh, where are they going to go from here? What does this mean in the bigger picture? It really does feel kind of like just that something happened in an alternate universe, and next week we'll see a different universe.
Yeah, I think
like,
they're,
what if?
Yeah, I think that's sort of the thing. They're kind of more, you know, snackable moments. Like, you know, you can just grab any random what if comic from the many decades they've existed and be totally fine, because like, oh, what if Spider-Man was part of the Fantastic Four, right? And they're useful for those one-offs. The only thing that I've seen through here actually happen, the first sort of wink or callback to a different what if episode, where one of the monsters that gets absorbed is the tentacles from that big tentacle monster that seems like the same one that Captain Carter fought.
Yeah. Yeah, that's and so far as I can tell, that other than the Watcher, that's the only thing that's similarly carried over from episode to episode. Everything else has just been self-contained little stories.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe we've just become accustomed to Marvel storytelling where, you know, in both the movies and the television shows, it feels like things were sort of building. It's always about building, universe building characters on each other, introducing new characters, building more characters. this is the first time where it does feel very much like standalone episodic, and maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe that's a nice break for, as opposed to the looking for the bigger puzzle and constantly obsessing with, well, what does it mean? And yet here we are talking about what it means.
Yeah, interesting. By the way, we have a little bit of fact check before we dive into the watch list, and that is that while I was looking for this weapon, I discovered that Where No Man Has Gone Before was actually the third episode broadcast, not the first.
Oh.
Yeah, so we was wrong.
It happens. We're not perfect, folks. We try our best.
It was the fourth one made, and but it was actually the third one to be broadcast. Yeah. Mantrap was Mantrap was the first one. Charlie X was the second one, and Where No Man Has Gone Before, September 22nd, 1966. There you go. And I remember the first one I remember watching when I was a kid was the Doomsday Machine, the giant ice cream cone that ate planet. But I remember. Is that season 2? Interesting. It is, yeah. But I mean, I do remember watching it before, but that's the one I remember for sure watching. So let's dig into the watch list now. And I think, John, you're up first.
Yeah, just a quick one from me. On my to-do list, I've been catching up on shows. I did a great big long watch of Clone Wars from beginning to end, and then to Bad Batch. And as I'm now working my way through catching up on a few other series, I decided that it was time to catch up on the rest of this current season of The Flash, the CW version. And I have got 2 episodes left, which I will probably watch in the next couple of days. And I can't decide if I would recommend it or not, but I am looking forward to seeing how it resolves. They've introduced some new characters. They brought some old characters back. The season has felt really weird, and I'm sure it's to do with the pandemic and the shooting schedule. The fact that last season didn't really end so much as it just sort of stopped because the pandemic forced all the closures of all the filming and everything else. So this season started with what would have been the end of last season, and then it sort of segued kind of weirdly into, a whole different story arc, and that story arc is now coming to a conclusion. It's a weird, it feels like a very unconventional season of television, not to mention the fact that here in Canada we're a little bit messed over just because we are getting it 2 days later and only on Netflix. So it doesn't feel as much like a weekly television program in the same way, I think, as I've gotten used to having watched it in previous years on television here. But yeah, I'm looking forward to finishing this up. I do want to get into, I know we're well into coming close to the end of the last season of Supergirl, and I'm definitely far behind on that. So I'm going to sort of work my way the next few weeks as best I can on catching up on some of the CW shows. But I'm curious to see how this wraps up, and I'm curious to see where this whole series is going. Flash is now the standard bearer. Of course, Supergirl's ending. Arrow's already ended. So The Flash is sort of the longest running DC Comics based TV show on right now. So it'll be interesting to see how that continues and or starts to wrap itself up soon.
And when is Supergirl is ending? Like soon? I
think so. I just saw a teaser for another episode. I don't know how many more there are to go. I'll report back next week, because by then I will have long since started into probably the final season.
Cool. All right. I mean, do you have something?
I do. It's a song by Hank Green entitled "What Would Captain Picard Do?" It's got a lot of TNG era goodness. And if you were wondering what Captain Picard would do, well, the chorus tells you he'd ensure the safety of his ship and his crew, and then complete the mission and make himself a better person. Bring peace to the galaxy and do it for free. So it's worth a listen. I've got this on the rotation on my Apple Music playlist. Not everybody has that, so I got the YouTube version free for everybody to listen.
Cool. All right. Well, I guess that's it for another week. So, hey. Jaime, if people want to get in touch with you, where would they find you?
I'm on Twitter as @DevWithAHair.
All right. And Jonathan, if people want to get in touch with you?
You can always find me on Twitter and Instagram as @JPKNews.
All right. My name is Dimitra, TIMMITRA. On the Twitter machine is where I am bound to be. So until next time, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
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 You've been listening to the Spotcast Podcast. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spotcast website at spotcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter at Spockcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpockcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spockcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spockcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
Let's put on a show, shall we? I was thinking when I said that, I was thinking like Bugs Bunny actually.
Oh.
But, overture,
Curtain
the
lights. This is we'll hit the lights.
When I was a kid, I was like overture, hit the heights.
Overture.
I know it's overture. I said overture when I sung it.
Yeah.
And also, Andy Rooney and Mickey. What's his name again?
Mickey Rooney?
Mickey Rooney and wasn't it Andy Rooney? Wasn't the name of the character? No, Andy Rooney was the guy from 60 Minutes. Andy Hardy is what I'm thinking of. The Andy Hardy movies with Judy Garland as the girl.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would always put on a show. Let's put on a show.
And now you're living in it. I'm going to add 2 pictures into our Slack channel for you guys. Something I saw when we were traveling down east in a display case full of statues.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah, I saw this too, like the face palm thing.
Yeah, they actually made side by side. They're like made out of porcelain. Like these are statues of the two of them doing the face palms.
Yeah. Does Riker ever do the face palm in the show?
Yes.
Okay.
I must admit, I'm really curious. So if you look at the photos I've taken, the Picard one costs $120. And the Riker one costs $170. Why is the Riker $170? Why is it $50 more? Is it the beard? What are they charging you extra for?
For extra work because they have to paint more colors instead of just
is it the hair?
Skin tone?
They're adding hair in, and they charge by the hair. As somebody who doesn't have a lot of hair, and Jaime, you and I can get into this. I feel like a little threatened by this.
Yeah, there's like more labor there to like follow the hairline and everything. Whereas with Picard, you're just painting like an egg. It's just very smooth, easy strokes to cover all of that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just thought it was hilarious that they felt like there was enough of a market where they're like, yeah, sure, like $300 worth of premium porcelain doll or porcelain statues. Sure, yeah, let's do that. Face palms, sure.
Yes, sir, Bob. Upper page. Alrighty. Well, I gotta run and do a whole bunch of stuff. So
okay.
We'll see you guys later.
You in the future.
Talk to you later.
Okay. Bye.
Yeah.